All right, we have contestant number 14, SuziRoberts, Miss Coastal Islands.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Susie. I'm going to start out with your first question. You say Fellowship of Christian Athletes champion for women's sports, but I don't see any sports on your resume. So how are you an athlete?
So I was considered an athlete at every school that I've attended where I've been involved in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes because of cheerleading. So a cheerleader dance team is considered an athlete, and I absolutely understand why with the 6 a.m. workouts that we had to do all the time. But the reason why I'm the champion for women's sports and not just cheerleading is because they felt as if I speak well to women in all sports and not just cheerleading.
You say in your resume that you're fearless. You use that word several times. Are you afraid of anything?
I'm definitely afraid to fail. I'm afraid of missing opportunities. And something specific that I'm afraid of is the threat of ISIS in our country.
Why? I mean, obviously why, but why of all things is that what scares you?
Well, I had a specific experience at one of our games for the Atlanta Falcons. There was a threat at Phillips Arena, which is connected to our stadium, and it was our military appreciation game. So standing there in a military uniform, a military printed uniform, and listening to the national anthem and hearing the bombs bursting in air and being afraid that at that moment in time that the entire stadium could explode, just that moment instilled so much fear in me that I've never felt. I've never been afraid for my life before. So that experience really made me afraid of the threat of ISIS in our country because it was so real for me.
Mm-hmm. Continue on that, when you talk about the social issues other than your platform and greatest impact, you talk about being ill-informed, and ill-informed nature brings fear. So what are the things that you think people are ill-informed about? About what? What can they do about that?
Well, I think one thing, especially with the presidential race going on, a lot of people are taking the initiative to be involved in what's going on through social media, but maybe just in a combative nature, in an argumentative way, knowing on BuzzFeed what's going on, or knowing YouTube videos that are funny about the candidates, but not really taking the chance to know what each candidate stands for and exactly how they can be involved in the democratic process beyond just a Facebook post talking about which candidate they like or dislike.
Can you really say that with record voter turnout in the primaries so far?
No, I mean, I think that a lot of people are getting involved because it is so sensationalized right now. They are getting involved, but I fear that they may not be as informed as they need to be involved. Or to take it a step further, not just the presidential race, but being involved in the democratic process as a whole and knowing that we actually can go to our local, state representatives before going all the way to the president, and not just holding the president accountable for all of the actions that happen in the United States, but our local representatives.
As a future senator, what do you feel will be, for example, the main issue of your campaign for that seat? So not what you're going to get done, but what is going to be your defining issue as a candidate?
Well, my philosophy when I approach politics is that everything that you do should be done with the next generation in mind. So thinking about how things affect, in a positive and negative way, affect children and how that will affect them as adults in the future. So thinking about things like...
What do you think is the greatest threat to children?
Well, things like the environment and how that can connect back to our education system. I mean, things like if you look at Nepal and how the mosquito population has increased and how that then increases health issues, and then that goes back and increases crime rates. So thinking about things like that and how that affects the United States, you see that happening in Flint, Michigan, how the environment there and the water supply has contributed to crime and to, bad education systems.
Is climate change a bigger threat than ISIS?
That's funny that you should bring that up because I have a hard time even really wrapping my mind around the topic of climate change because of all of the conspiracy theories that do surround that issue. And so I find it hard to know what to believe and what not to believe. And that,
Speaking of conspiracy theories, I feel like sometimes in pageantry there is rumor of politics and that potentially judges are charged in a certain way for a pageant to be rigged. How do you feel about that? And do you think that it potentially exists in South Carolina?
I don't think it exists in the way that judges are charged with choose this specific contestant. But I do think that it is appropriate for judges to be charged with this is what we're looking for specifically. And if that happens to fit a specific contestant, then that's what the board asked for. That's what the Miss Miracle organization asked for. And if the judges feel as if with those qualities that it fits that contestant, then that's just the contestant filling the job, not being charged with choosing that specific girl.
Being involved with child advocacy in your guardian ad litem position, what do you believe about a gay couple providing foster care for a child in South Carolina?
With the incredible need that there is for foster parents, any foster parent is better than no foster parent. And I don't think that there's any reason that a gay couple shouldn't be able to have a child in their home because they have a unique perspective about inclusion and, really understanding people and teaching that child how to be more relatable and how to accept more types of people in the world. So I think that would be a great option in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
What did you miss from your parents and your family from moving out, living independently at 12 years old? What did you miss from your family?
I think the biggest thing that I missed was my little brother growing up. We're 5 years apart, and he's coming to college next year, and I really, really hope that he's going to come to Columbia and be my roommate, but if not, it was a lot. And when I heard him tell my mom, she called me and told me, your brother told me last night that he feels like he doesn't even know his sister. That just completely broke my heart, and I wish that I could take that back, and I wish that I could be there for him during my parents' divorce, but I can't, and that's why it's so important to me to be there for all the other children that are going through that.
What do you think is the thing that we can do to prevent situations like what you described in your paperwork and these broken families? What's the precursor to that? How can you prevent these children from, I guess it's a family issue. What are the underlying issues or why we have broken families?
I don't think there's really any way to prevent a broken family. People fall in and out of love, and I think that that's something that's becoming more commonplace in the United States. So maybe requiring some type of premarital counseling before allowing couples to get married rather than just allowing anyone. But that's not to say that it's not still going to happen, and that's not to say that it's sometimes not the right option. I really do think in my family that my parents getting divorced was the best thing for us because we didn't live in that home with all the tension. But I was lucky enough that my parents did know how it could affect me, and I was put into counseling with a therapist with my brother after it happened. So just taking the right steps to make sure that we're able to stay mentally healthy regardless of what situation happens, because some situations we can't avoid.
How does your parents being divorced affect your relationship process? Are you fearful that whoever you're with you may get divorced from, or how does that affect your relationships?
I think it has the complete adverse effect for me. If anything, I'm not looking for a man that fits a checklist. I'm looking for who I love, and if that man is the trash man on the street, he's the trash man on the street. But if I love him, I'm going to be with the person that I love, not the person that fulfills this image of what a perfect husband would be by a checklist standard.
Do you believe love is a choice or an emotion?
It's definitely an emotion. Some of the people that I love, I wish I didn't sometimes. But, well, when boys break your heart and you just can't help but love them anyway. But I think that's also just a part of my nature that I am very forgiving and trusting, and I give second chances. So in some ways that's a strength, and in some ways that's a weakness. But yeah, sometimes I do wish I could just cut that off and not.
To be from South Carolina, do you think the state government took too long to take the Confederate flag down, or was it just the right timing now?
Oh, yeah, way too long. I mean,
Susie, you have 30 seconds left.
Sorry, I wish I could talk about that more, but yeah, and I think that in South Carolina, things like that I feel need to be changed quicker. That's the job of them in South Carolina, is to create that movement in the state. And I think that I can do that. I can stand with Nikki Haley and create more foster parents in the state of South Carolina. I can change health care for children in South Carolina. And that will be my job as Miss South Carolina. And that's what I plan on doing as Miss South Carolina, or just as a professional adult anyway. So, thank you.
Thank you.
They're like, so.
I shouldn't have said so.
You don't have to actually leave this time.
Okay, cool. All right.